For this next conversation with two people we're really fortunate to have with us in person today. Our first is Jane Brady Knight. Jane Brady Knight is the executive director of Craft Philanthropy, which is based in Lexington, Kentucky. Jane Brady directs efforts and resources towards organizations that uphold core democratic principles and manages projects that support the vitality of American life and economic development throughout the Commonwealth. Prior to this role, she worked in coalitions at the American Enterprise Institute, where she managed AEI's Civic Renewal Fellowship and the AEI Alumni Network. Jane Brady began her career on the development team for the Manhattan Institute's Young Leaders Circle in New York City. She graduated cum laude from Davidson College in 2016, where she received her bachelor's in political science with a focus on global development and the politics of Africa. Jane Brady currently lives in Lexington, Kentucky. And our second speaker is Brent Orrell. Brent is a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, where he specializes in job training and workforce development with a special focus on disconnected and disadvantaged populations, which includes youth, justice-involved populations, veterans, and neurodivergent persons. His recent work has focused on the workforce opportunities and challenges resulting from generative AI and automation, as well as strategies for improving economic mobility in rural, redeveloping, and non-metropolitan areas throughout America. Brent has spearheaded AEI's involvement with the Workforce Futures Initiative in collaboration with the Brookings Institution and the Harvard Kennedy School, which has produced multiple reports, working group sessions, and interest from communities across the United States. Can you guys give a warm welcome to Jane Brady Knight and Brent Orrell? Jane Brady and Brent, welcome.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Colby.
Brent, is this your inaugural trip to Eastern Kentucky?
To Eastern Kentucky, yes.
Well, welcome.
Yes, I drove through the night last night to get here, so I'm just now getting to see a little bit of the landscape with the morning.
Welcome to a nice surprise this morning. So I'm looking forward to our conversation today. Obviously, it's going to be briefer than we could speak about some of these topics for a lot longer than 20 or so odd minutes. But I want to speak a little bit on some of the workforce challenges that we have in Eastern Kentucky. And really kind of starting, Brent, with maybe you helping us understand from a workforce participate, what is that? Why does it matter? There's going to be lots of conversations over the next couple of days, specifically about prime age employment, right? And maybe put it in context of kind of how we've gotten to the point where we are today. And then how do we compare in Central Appalachia to kind of trends maybe in the rest of the country? I'd like for us to start there, and then we'll get into a little bit about what we're going to do about it. Jane Brady.
So let's start with some definitions. Labor force participation is calculated as a ratio. Prime age labor force participation is calculated as a ratio of the number of 25 to 54-year-olds who are employed. Okay, so that's the ratio we're looking at. In the United States, the national labor force participation rate is about 83%. Among men, it's about 89%, which is pretty high. We, in a very low unemployment environment that we've got right now, that's reasonably good for this prime age population. In Kentucky, the labor force participation rate is about 79%, so it's a little under the national average for the state as a whole. And then here in Eastern Kentucky, the Appalachian counties of Kentucky, it's about 48%. So the national is 83 and the regional is 48. So we've got a lot of people in this region who are in that prime age where they really should be working unless they're caring for families or they've got some other obligation. They really should be working, and it is, I would say, extremely difficult for the community communities of the region to thrive, so long as only half of a little bit less than half the eligible workforce is actually in the workforce. So that's a steep hill to climb, and it is, I think, one of the main reasons that so much attention right now is being paid to the Appalachian region nationally, and especially here in Eastern Kentucky.
And Brennan, in your analysis, is it something, that gap, has it been kind of happen in a linear fashion where you've seen it widen by similar amounts over time periods, or have there been certain eras where you've seen a spike and that's kind of where we've gotten to where we are today?
So I think it's really important to keep in mind that this is, the trend that we see is not specific to Eastern Kentucky or to Appalachia. We've got a problem with labor force participation, particularly among men, in the United States generally, all right? It's more pronounced here. The general trend is really driven by the change in the labor market itself, I think. We have moved over the last 40, 50 years from a mainly manufacturing-based economy to a mainly information and services economy. So the jobs have changed. And that has proven to be a big obstacle, particularly in those non-metropolitan areas of the United States that really were the heartland of American manufacturing. So it's hit harder here. That change in the nature of the economy has hit harder. There are problems that are specific to Appalachia. I noticed that the Hatfield-McCoy Museum is somewhere in this vicinity, and that heritage is specific to this region, and so. But it's really the main thing is the jobs have changed, and the people have not changed. The people are who they are, and we need to figure out how to better equip people to actually participate in the economy that exists rather than the economy that we wished we had.
Well, that's a good segue, Jane Brady. I mean, Brent mentions a point that the jobs have changed, but people and the skill sets they haven't. And obviously a part of the free market capitalist society that we have is there's creative destruction that happens. It's cyclical, and there's these moments in time. So how are you thinking about it, given your background in craft philanthropy, about how do we help people in Kentucky, and specifically Eastern Kentucky, to give them the hand up they need and the support they need to acquire those skills and really transition to a new way of working? How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Craft Philanthropy, we like to say we help people help themselves. We are true believers in the American dream, and not necessarily an American dream that has you meeting standardized metrics of success based off of an American dream that was determined decades ago. It's an American dream that really focuses on being a CEO of your life, being an entrepreneur of your life. And that's something I actually learned during my tenure at AEI. I worked with Brent a lot, and we worked on different projects that took AEI's ideas and gave them feet, made them walk. So how do we empower people to actually pursue their version of their own American dream, which is what we're really focused on here in Kentucky, specifically in this region with Craft Philanthropy. We focus on rural economic development, but doing that through community-driven initiatives, which is how you and I got connected. And our philanthropist in chief, as I like to call him, Joe Craft, he's from this region, grew up in Hazard, where the war on poverty was declared, and he never intended to have what he has now, which are an abundance of resources, right? He always wanted to just be a CPA, but he was given opportunities that he was able to pursue. And one day he looked up and he did have this abundance of resources, and therefore has pledged, he does not believe it's his, so he's pledged to give 100% of it away to the state. And so that is our mission, that's our journey, and I had the pleasure of meeting Colby, and we worked together on securing this grant, this recompete grant that really focuses on these issues of the prime age employment gap. Housing, daycare, transportation, anything that could be a barrier to getting someone employed, but also breaking those cycles of learned helplessness and really teaching agency, but not just in teaching agency, really empowering people to take charge of their own life. But that comes with partnering alongside government, partnering alongside state and local officials, federal officials who are giving us resources through this grant, but also creating incentives on our end through craft philanthropy with private funds, private philanthropy with our own team, and being able to support the efforts through SOAR and this Recompete grant. So that's how we're really looking at it, as in a holistic approach. And we try to fill in the gaps, but not only that, be really proactive with creating incentives so that when we receive this type of support from state, local, federal officials and federal grants, we see that change happen. We move the needle. We're really action-oriented. We run our philanthropy like a business, so we like to see results. And Brent is someone who's been really instrumental in helping us look at metrics of success, both proactively and then how we're going to measure it afterwards.
For sure. So obviously our time was short. We were just scratching. So I kind of the last question for both is kind of looking ahead. Obviously, we're going to have some big news to talk about tomorrow that's been public for a little bit, but we've got this incredible opportunity as a region to create this new engine that's specifically focused on this long-term joblessness problem that's wreaking havoc on the region. That's real a root cause. So how should we be thinking about this though, Brent and Jane Brady, from your all seat, from a long-term standpoint? So obviously this opportunity we have is going to be 5 years. We're not going to fix we didn't get here in 5 years. We're not going to fix everything in 5 years. So from your all seat, I guess, how would you define, once we've slowly kind of turned this engine or the ship or however you want to say it, and we're in the right direction, how should we be thinking about success over the long term?
Success over the long term, I think it's really looking at what Brent said. You look at the trends, and we have to address what's currently going on, but we also have to prepare the future of our workforce. So not only looking at, prime age employment right now, how do we get people into the workforce, not only just getting them a job, but helping them retain that job and seeing what that, the steps into finding a purposeful life through the dignity of work is. And it does seem very esoteric. There are esoteric parts to it, but I think at the ground level and how we're addressing it with peer mentorship support, making sure that everyone has really personalized care through the resources we're able to provide, will take a new approach to how we've addressed it in the past. And then not only that, creating talent pipelines, starting from K through 12, of what does it look like to have a career in this region, and not only that, build a life. What does a meaningful life look like here, and how can I be a part of this community and giving back and growing with the trends, and what does that new workforce look like, and therefore how can we prepare for that? That's what we do at Craft Philanthropy, really focus on those talent pipelines through STEM education, through peer-to-peer mentorship programs, and then we try to connect business leaders with all of our students, ages K through 12, and even college students too.
And Brett, before you might add, Jane Brady talked about a talent pipeline, but you talk a lot about sectoral partnerships. I was assuming you're nodding, and we feel like we have a great one with healthcare.
Yeah.